and grounded in love. Strengthened in the Spirit through faith, to know the height and depth and length and breadth of God's understanding and grace. If you are feeling anger, don't let that sun go down. You won't be tested past your strength. There's always a way out when you are rooted and grounded in love. Strengthened in the Spirit through faith, to know the height and depth and length and breadth of God's understanding and grace. So when you feel like worrying, turn everything to prayer. And God will search your heart and soul, and hope will find you there. You will be rooted and grounded in love. Strengthened in the Spirit through faith, to know the height and depth and length and breadth of God's understanding and grace. To know the height and depth and length and breadth of God's understanding and grace. Okay, thank you.
Next, Valerie will come and lead us in a song that may be new to all of us. It was certainly new to me, and we're being helped by Lisa. And all of you who can join us in this new time of singing. The words are up here.
Okay, so count.
And I want to thank Lisa for 10 minutes ago coming up with chords to accompany. I'll go through the chorus once, and then we'll repeat it with you all joining in, and we'll just move right into it. Right. Give me a chord. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. No room in this heart for fear. No judgment day drawing near. Trust that inner voice you hear every day. Life's not a goal or race. It's about heart and faith and living a life of grace every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. Trust is an open hand, making an honest stand, rooted here in the land every day. Live in the mystery, seeking the harmony here between you and me every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day.
All right. Valerie says we have time for both. So we'll do Give Light, and people will find the way. Very simple. How many people know it? Cool. I have no idea if the words I said afterwards have been sung by anybody anytime, but we'll give it a try. And Ella Baker was the one that the words are attributed to. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. People will find the way we do believe. Live love. Live love, and people will find the way. Live love, and people will find the way. Live love, and people will find the way. People will find the way we do believe. Find hope, and people will find the way. Find hope, and people will find the way. Find hope, and people will find the way. People will find the way we do believe. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. Give light, and people will find the way. People will find the way I do believe. People will find the way I do believe. This will be our last song. It's helps us to prepare for the quiet worship with which we will welcome our plenary guests. How many people know Ubi Caritas? Excellent. Harmony is welcome, but maybe wait until everyone's heard the line once, and we'll just continue Latin, English, until they are coming out, and then we'll stop. Ubi caritas et amor. Ubi caritas Deus dies. Live in charity and steadfast love. Live in charity. God will dwell with us. Ubi caritas et amor. Ubi caritas Deus dies. Ubi caritas et amor. et amor, ubi caritas, Deus sibi. Thank you.
Putting it on always helps. Welcome once more to the 2014 gathering. My name is Barry Crossnow. As the General Secretary of Friends Journal Conference, I want to express my gratitude that we've gathered together from near and far to co-create this loving and enriching community grounded in spirit. Thank you for making this a priority in your life and giving us all an opportunity to journey with one another. With gratitude in mind, I hope you'll join me in expressing appreciation to the gathering clerks, Laura Melli, Zan Lombardo, and Mio Moriucci, the gathering staff, Tracy Gelt Sullivan, Susan Lee Barton, Patsy Martin, and Cody Hirsch, the members of the gathering and planning committees, and also the incredible number of friends who are doing everything from checking people in to leading the workshops to driving the golf carts. Let's give them all a round of applause. Let us also hold the circle of love we create this week. Let's make sure that it includes our hosts here at California University. Every day, let's be present to the gift of hospitality that we're experiencing from the university administrators, the student dorm staffers, the cooks, the technicians, the groundskeepers, and many other people with whom we are sharing this wonderful campus. Through our actions and words this week, let's make sure they know we appreciate their presence and all that they're doing for us. I also want to take this time to share a few thoughts about Friends General Conference and the theme of this year's gathering. As many of you know, Friends General Conference as an organization is so much more than the gathering. As an affiliation of yearly and monthly meetings from across the United States and Canada, FGC's mission is to nurture the vitality of the Religious Society of Friends by providing programs and services for friends, meetings, and seekers. Our vision is a vital and growing religious society of friends, a faith that deepens spiritually, welcomes newcomers, builds supportive and inclusive community, and provides loving service and witness in the world. Through our programs and services, FGC seeks to assist Quaker meetings in making the full joy, depth, fire of Quaker faith and practice highly available and teachable and experiential for all those who would become part of our faith communities and who are part of our faith communities. And I want to emphasize very crucially that the ongoing realization of this vision is made possible by all of us, by all of you. Just like the gathering, all the various programs of FGC, a number of which you can learn more about at this gathering through interest groups and presentations, are made possible by the commitment of our staff, hundreds of volunteers, thousands of donors, and all of you who use and share our programs. In other words, it's all of us, the body of friends, that makes FGC a vibrant organization. Please explore what we have to offer while you're here. The life of John Woolman, a life we rightfully celebrate, is a life of loving kindness and deep faithfulness, created over many years, intentionally nurtured through surrender, prayer, study, and reflection and practice. While his walk was particular to his time and place, God is still present and accompanies us on our own journeys, where we still ready ourselves with the same tools of spiritual practice. This is why FGC programs are designed in many various ways to assist your spiritual practice and the practice of the worshiping community. From my perspective then, letting love be the first motion isn't just a theme for this year's gathering. It's a mindful practice that can transform our awareness and our relationships with one another. Use this week to mindfully practice. Be present to one another. Allow yourself to create boundaries that promote self-care and right relationship, while also embracing and creating safe moments to be vulnerable with one another, because it is often through our vulnerability that we experience love and openings. As Woman also wrote, there is a principle which is pure, placed in the human mind, which in different places and ages hath had different names. It is, however, pure and proceeds from God. It is deep and inward, confined to no forms of religion, nor excluded from any, where the heart stands in perfect sincerity. In whomsoever this takes root and grows, of what nation soever, they become brethren. Be open to that principle of which woman speaks, and which proceeds from spirit. Let love take root this week. See the seed of God in one another. Relax your judgments so that you may hear one another. Learn from your mistakes, large and small. Forgive yourself and others for the same imperfections. By doing these things, you will give yourself and others the freedom to grow and explore. So walk cheerfully, friends. Listen and share deeply tonight, and enjoy the 2014 gathering. We are enormously glad you're here. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lucy Duncan, and it is my great, great honor to introduce this plenary with these dear friends, each of whom has touched my life in some way, some through, in a more remote way, through Facebook, and some in a much more direct way. Love is the first motion. The famous quote by Woolman, from which this phrase comes, is about Woolman's leading to visit the Delaware Indians. It is about how love leads one to a desire for understanding and connection, a desire to discover the truth as understood by others. It is about how encounters with people very different from oneself seasons one's mind and produces a near sympathy and shifts one's heart. My own sense is that this motion toward love is our birthright. When my son Simon was a baby, we used to ride the Blue Line train into Center City, Philadelphia. On each journey, Simon would smile broadly at each person. Most smiled back generously, but some wouldn't. When they wouldn't, he would try even harder to get them to smile back, to connect with them. He would wriggle and beam at them. He longed for and worked for connection and hadn't begun to learn what our society teaches us, that whole communities are denied love, that there are some more worthy of love than others. Tonight, Victoria, Sue, and Noah will tell us stories about uncovering that longing for connection, for reclaiming that birthright that Simon knew and still knows, though not so readily, that we are born to love one another and to unmask the lies and the hurts that keep us from love, to offer a near sympathy to one another, and by so doing, transform ourselves and the world. They will tell us stories about how, in the end, love wins and expresses itself through one another and God. Victoria Greene is the founder and executive director of EMIR, Every Murder is Real. Every Murder is Real is a community-based nonprofit agency that advocates, educates, and supports individuals, families, and communities that have been impacted by homicide and violent crimes. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from Rosemont College in Rosemont, Pennsylvania. She also received her certification from the Victim Assistance Academy at Scranton University in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She is the mother of 5 children, Shantae, Altavis, Emir, Aja, and Ayana. Her career as a drug and alcohol counselor and social worker for the Philadelphia prison system began in 1984. Tragically, her only son, Emir Greene, was murdered in 1997. Victoria continued to work at the prison until her retirement in 2004. During this time, she put on 2 major conferences on drug-related homicide at Rosemont College and at Temple University. With the help of her daughters, she serviced families who had experienced homicide from her home, turning the bedroom of her deceased son into an office. From this home office, Emir received its first grant from the Maryland Crime Victim Services Hope II grant. Emir is now located on 5213 Germantown Avenue, the Parish House of Servants of Christ Methodist Church. Emir has been there since 2008. Victoria has received numerous awards for her vital work. Victoria performed for 3 years in the original play Beyond the Walls, The Road to Redemption, sponsored by Tova Theater of Witness. This play is about mothers who have lost their children to violence and perpetrators who have turned their lives around. The play was turned into a video. This video was shown at Greene Street monthly meeting at their movie and discussion series. This was Victoria's introduction to Quakerism. At Greene Street, Victoria found friends who were not afraid of murder, who embraced her and her work. At Greene Street, her activism is worship, and the murder of her son is not a stigma. She is free to hurt and be happy. There is no judgment. Greene Street supports Emir financially and supplies dinners for the weekly grief and trauma support groups. Greene Street is there for the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is true in love in action. Sue Penn writes letters, blog posts, essays, and lists. She, I can attest to this, has elevated the Facebook status update to an art form. Asked to briefly describe their mother, her children offered awesome, awesome, kind, smart, and awesome. Sue has been active with Friends for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer concerns for many years and works to live out their spirit-led commitment to radical inclusion. She will speak as led about spirituality and sexuality with the guidance and accompaniment of Walt Whitman. She's still excited and pleased that her article about the tiny tornado from last August's Friends Journal won an honorable mention in the annual awards given by the Associated Christian Press. An essay of Shane Claiborne's from Sojourners was one of the winners in her category, so she was in good company. Her partner and Sue have been together for 21 years this week and have 3 kids who are 13, 10, and almost 7. 6 and more than a half is what he will tell you if you ask. The older 2 are homeschooled and the youngest attends public school. Sue is in school right now for a midlife career change into speech-language pathology. She recently started blogging for First Day Press. She is told she has a superpower, which is that she can speak and write about difficult subjects in a way that opens people to hearing them. She reads a lot of poetry and has led workshops on Walt Whitman at previous gatherings. She will speak about sex and desire as one of the forces in our lives that pulls us closer to each other and to God, about worshiping with the body and what it has to do with worship as we otherwise practice it. Noah Baker Merrill seeks to be faithful in the living Quaker tradition of gospel ministry, the practical spiritual work of encouraging faithfulness and awakening hearts. Putney Friends Meeting in Vermont has released him for service encouraging the Quaker movement in our time and the future of Friends. Noah is a founder of Quaker Voluntary Service, which provides opportunities for transformational service and witness grounded in Quaker faith community. In 2009, Utner Reader magazine recognized him as one of 50 visionaries who are changing the world. In April 2012, Noah offered the plenary worship address on behalf of North American Friends at the Sixth World Conference of Friends in Kenya. He serves as Secretary of New England's yearly meeting. He hopes to speak to the motion of love within, among, and through us as a community of faith. And he asked me to read his letter from Putney. Dear friends, Noah Baker Merrill is a member of Putney Friends Meeting whose spiritual wisdom is cherished. In support of the gift of ministry given through him, we have named Noah a released friend of the meeting. We are grounding his service through nurture and oversight. Noah's work is the work of the meeting. Noah's faith has served as an instrument of love in times of trouble. He seeks to live in and be open to the life and power of God. We witness this. Under the guidance of the Spirit and with the prayers of friends, may his service among you be faithful. With Noah, we send our loving greetings, signed on behalf of Putney Friends Meeting, Carol Forsyth. Tonight, each speaker will speak out of the silence and then return to worship as they conclude. At the end, there will be open worship with mic runners when all three are done. The post-plenary discussion will be in Convocation 5, and they would love to see many of you there. So I introduce Noah, Sue, and Victoria will open.
Good evening. Good evening. I am really honored and grateful to be here to speak to you tonight. I'm a little nervous. And you know, when you get nervous, you talk to everybody. So I was telling a volunteer. Okay. All right. Thank you. I was telling a volunteer at the registration table how nervous I was. And she reminded me, she said, well, remember, you're going to be speaking to friends, big F, little f. And they will be a gentle audience. So I'm asking you, live up to your reputation. Be gentle, because I need it. When I was invited to speak, I thought about the theme of the gathering, let love be the first motion. And I thought about my son. When my son was murdered 17 years ago, love was not my first motion or notion. I was devastated. The pain, you know how you hear about a broken heart? My heart was beyond broken. My heart was burning. The pain was so painful, it continued to burn and burn and burn. I didn't want to live anymore. I told my children, the pain is just too great. I don't want to live. My children, my daughters, hid all the knives out of the kitchen, and they hid all my medication. I was suicidal. This went on for several months, and then I became very impatient about the police and the detectives. When were they going to lock this person up? Everyone knew who did it. I gave them all the information that I had, all the evidence. My son's friends were telling me who murdered him, and I became very angry. How dare this person walk around and breathe and live? How dare this person eat and sleep and be with his friends when my son lay dead in the morgue. How dare he? And I was very, very angry, and I became homicidal. The anger was so great it lived in my body as it was its own entity. I had given up on humanity. I felt like if another person can shoot somebody in the back 7 times, what hope is there for us? How can a human being do that? I lost hope for humanity, and I did not believe in God anymore. Why didn't God protect my son one more night? I always prayed for the protection of all my children. So why not this night, God? I was homicidal and I was very angry. You know, murder is a stigma. I watched people cross the street when they saw me walking. It's like you have the plague. They're afraid that it's going to jump on them. It's like a disease. So I lost friends. And interesting, those friends were the ones I counted on, I thought would be there. But some of them just couldn't handle it. Miraculously, there were people who weren't friends who became friends. I remember Miss Jane down the street. She was a neighbor, and we weren't close. And she came to my home, and she fell in my arms and cried and talked about how my son used to help her with her groceries to bring them in the house. And then I remember Judy Rushaw, who was a co-worker. And Judy and I talked in the hallways, you know, just regular talk at work. But she reached out to me and became a friend and was there for me. It was just amazing. Random acts of kindness from people made me believe, well, maybe there is hope for us. Right before Memorial Day, 1997, my son was murdered in March. I received a phone call from a detective, and he said that they had arrested the young man that murdered my son. And guess where they brought him? Guess what prison they brought him to? The very prison that I worked in. Now, prison policy is such that you are supposed to tell your supervisor, and then the supervisor tells the warden, and they have that person moved to another prison. But I had other plans. I thought about, if I can get a weapon in here, I can call the unit where he is housed and have him come to my office. Or I can go down on the unit and then I could shoot him. And that's it. I didn't care. I did not care about my life. That's how angry I was. And then one day, I thought about it, and I said, all the guards that I passed through, they would have lost their jobs, every last one of them. I thought about their families. I thought about how long I knew them, how they trusted me. And then I thought about my mother. My mother had already lost her grandson. How would she live if her only daughter would be in prison for the rest of her life? I thought about my 4 daughters. They'd already lost their brother, now their mother. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So that day is when I decided to live. I'm not going to kill myself, and I'm not killing anybody else. I can't do it. Cannot bring any more pain that has already been suffered. So that's when I decided to live. 2 years after my son's murder, I started a nonprofit in his bedroom. I turned his bedroom into an office. And like my bio said, received a grant from Maryland Crime Victim Services. EMIR is dedicated to the treatment of trauma, advocating for families who've been affected by homicide and violence. I became involved in a play by a theater group called TOVA, Theater of Witness. And these plays were put on by people who, these were their actual stories. They were not actors and actresses. And I became involved in the play Beyond the Walls, The Road to Redemption. And we traveled, we went to Gratisford, we went to schools, churches, and we showed the play everywhere. And at the end, we had the video. And that's how I ended up at Greene Street. They had a series, a film series, and they wanted people that were in the play to come to answer questions. And I went to Greene Street and they showed the film and they asked questions and everything. And I remember at the end, a young lady came up to me, Joanne Seaver, and she invited me to worship, and I said, listen, is it true that y'all sit in the silence for an hour for worship? Is it true? And she said, yes, it is true. And I said, well, I don't know if I can sit for an hour. She said, well, just do the best you can. And I started coming to Greene Street, and 3 years later, I became a member. Because like I said, murder is a stigma. And the people at Greene Street welcomed me and supported my ministry financially, and they also supplied dinners for our support group. When we have our support group, we sit down to eat dinner first together, and then we split up. The women are in a separate group, the children in a group, and the men and boys, because we find that people are more free to talk when they don't have to worry about, well, I don't want to say this in front of my mom, and the mom doesn't want to cry in front of the children, so we separate everybody and we do it in a holistic manner. I want to tell you a story about a young man who attended Every Murder is Real. He went to our support groups. His cousin was murdered. Both of them were held up in the streets of North Philadelphia, and his cousin was murdered. The only reason he wasn't shot was because the gun jammed. And he started attending our support groups. One day he showed up at my door, and he said, Miss Greene, I was going to North Philly to kill somebody because they killed my cousin, and my car brought me here. My car brought me here. And I told him to come in. I'm so glad your car brought you here, you know. And I realized that that was a life that was saved. Retaliation. Who would know better about the anger than me? Who wanted to retaliate? And another story, in 2010, a group of children came through. They were with their parents, and they were in the support group. And they said, we need a peace movement. Nobody knows our pain. Nobody listens to us. We're not 18, so we can't vote. Politicians don't care about us. We want to live. So the We Live project was born from these young people from the ages of 5 to 16. We had our first rally that year. September 25th is National Day of Remembrance for Murder Victims. And the We Live project children, they did everything. They came up with a declaration of peace. They did praise dancing, poetry, open mic, everything. And we have been working with these children ever since. So treatment of trauma is very important. The children and the families that I work with, are suffering from post-traumatic stress. There is a war in our streets, an unrecognized war that's going on, and the treatment of trauma stops the violence. Untreated trauma perpetuates violence. So my challenge for you is, how much time do I have? I just want to say that it's easy to love people when they're doing great. Oh, they're on the upswing. Job is fine, family is fine. It's easy to love them. Oh, they're happy, they're nice and smiling. Oh, you hug them. They're easy to love. But it's those that are devastated, depressed, hopeless, helpless, pissed off, angry, negative. They're not easy to love. But those are the ones that need it the most, because those people were me. That was me. And because of the love that I received from random people, acquaintances, I came alive because I was truly dead. So my challenge is love those people. It's not easy, because tell you, I was a tough one. You didn't want to be around me, but love is what did it. So when you think about let love be the first motion, think about those people, that angry person, that miserable person, and wrap your arms around them and love them and keep loving them. And they'll push you away. Oh, yes, they'll push you away because they can't stand it. They don't want to hear anything good. But you keep at it, and one day they will come alive. I just want to say today is my son's birthday. He would have been 37. And Emir was a prankster, a real funny guy, a comedian type. And a lot of times, when I would be scared, he would say, "Come on, Mom, don't punk out on me. Come on, you can do it, you can do it." So that's what I hear when I do things like this. I hear him saying, "Come on, Mom, you can do it. Don't punk out. I want you to live, Mom. Live the best you can." So I just hope that he's proud of me. And I want to say happy birthday, Emir. And I hope that you are proud of your mother, because I've been working so hard in your name so that your death will not be in vain. So thank you.
I want us to remember that I'm only here tonight because our beloved Judy Ann Williams couldn't be. And I really miss her. And I miss her. I wish she were here. We only finally got clear and agreed that I would do this a little less than 2 weeks ago. And poor Walt Whitman, my inspiration, my muse, my guide, my love, he didn't survive the revision process. But if you want to hear some Whitman, this is something I can do for you anytime. Just let me know. In the late 1950s, some young Quakers in England who were troubled by same-sex attraction reached out to their elders for guidance. The older friends could have simply parroted conventional, psychological, religious, and moral opinions to their young people, but instead, they reflected. They came to feel that neither they nor the Society of Friends had an adequate response, so they set out to study homosexuality. Realizing that questions about homosexuality couldn't be answered in isolation, they soon broadened their work to what they called, ambitiously, a survey of the whole field of sexual activity. That did not sound salacious at all when I was practicing this. I don't know what happened there. We have had to ask ourselves insistent questions, they wrote, and we want to record those questions, whether we can answer them or not. Christianity for us is concerned primarily with what is true, not with approved patterns of conduct. We believe, therefore, that it is right for a Christian to ask every kind of question fearlessly in the search for truth. That is from the introduction to Towards a Quaker View of Sex, the remarkable document this study group published in 1963. Among their conclusions, they wrote, "We reject almost completely the traditional approach of the Christian Church to morality, with its supposition that it knows precisely what is right and what is wrong, that this distinction can be made in terms of an external pattern of behavior, and that the greatest good will come only through universal adherence to that pattern. Nothing that has come to light in the course of our studies has altered the conviction that came to us when we began to examine the actual experiences of people, the conviction that love cannot be confined to a pattern. The waywardness of love is part of its nature, and that is both its glory and its tragedy. If love did not tend to leap every barrier, it could be tamed. It would not be the tremendous creative power we know it to be and want it to be." These compassionate, enlightened, and faithful people make me proud to be a Quaker. Many of their statements are still progressive, even radical today. While they sometimes pulled back from the full implications of what they were learning, had this pamphlet gained the status it deserved among friends, had it been regularly read and studied and responded to over the past 50 years, think of how we might have carried their light forward. Instead, we have chosen to fall into a kind of dark ages, not only failing to add to their light, but allowing it to dwindle. Let me demonstrate. The 1960 edition of Christian Faith and Practice of London Yearly Meeting includes this. For some, there is a monogamy so entire that no other love ever touches it. But others fall in love time and time again and must learn to make riches of their affection without destroying their marriage or their friends. Let us thank God for what we share, which enables us to understand, and for the infinite variety in which each marriage stands alone. Nearly 50 years later, the 1997 edition of Philadelphia Yearly Meetings Faith and Practice covers sexuality in less than 3 pages. Its paragraph on the sexual education of young people includes only one specific curriculum suggestion: that our youth be warned about AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. In its paragraph on adult sexuality, it says, friends are wary of a preset moral code. Wary. Contrast that with the forthright rejection in Towards a Quaker View of Sex. This faith and practice offers only one model of relationship. For many friends, it tells us, celibate in singleness, faithful in marriage, has proven consonant with the divine will. I'm sure this is true, but to offer a single example implies endorsement, and this falls far short of the standard of truth friends should hold themselves to, given that there are probably more exceptions to than followers of that model among us. You may be surprised to hear me say that we're in a dark ages. Do we not celebrate the rapid and seemingly unstoppable spread of marriage equality across the U.S.? We do, yes. Do we not embrace our gay and lesbian friends? Have we not made great strides in our understanding and acceptance of transgender friends? Friends for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer concerns is a respected body, and many individuals who are active with that group are much beloved and admired. And yet, I tell you that we are failing. I tell you that among us are too many who cannot speak of their loves, their lovemaking, and the fullness of their lives for fear of censure, judgment, and exclusion. There are those among us who have lost friendships because people could not accept that their healthy relationship was not somehow tainted by its very nature. And there are young people among us who need help to understand their developing sexuality and guidance in flourishing as they learn to express it, and they cannot get it because there are no role models for them, no elders, no guides who have walked their path before them, because the people who could help them are in hiding among us. We fail when we shy away from talking about sex, or when we coyly dance around it with euphemisms and suggestive phrases. We fail when the only thing we can think to tell our children about sex is that it's dangerous. We fail when we encounter a type of relationship or learn of a sexual practice that is outside our experience and let our discomfort and ignorance govern our reactions. We fail when we pass judgment out loud without knowing who among us we're judging. We fail when we extend our acceptance to a new group of people while holding tight to our power to define what is and is not acceptable. When we forget that to celebrate the passage of a new law is also to reconfirm the power of the law. Let us take as our model the 11 men and women who produced Towards a Quaker View of Sex. They were humble when faced with something they didn't understand. They admitted their ignorance. They bravely sought to learn from people's experiences. They listened open-heartedly to what they were told. They were more concerned with the well-being of the young people who had approached them for help than with preserving their own ideas and beliefs. They placed love before judgment, knowing it was a dangerous thing to do. We believe that it is right for a Christian, let's say a Quaker. We believe that it is right for a Quaker to ask every kind of question fearlessly in the search for truth. We believe that it is right for a Quaker to ask every kind of question fearlessly in the search for truth. There are some questions I would love to see us ask fearlessly. There are friends whose lives ask those questions, whose lives are active experiments in love and desire. Let us look to them. We have learned over long, hard decades to make the truths of gay and lesbian lives our own. We are working now to similarly take in what transgender people like my son have to tell us, not merely to tolerate or accept lives that are different from our own, but to know their worthiness on a level that is beyond question or doubt. I'm quaking. I have been gifted with shamelessness and an extraordinary capacity for self-disclosure. This is not a surprise to any of you who read my blog or follow me on Facebook or talk to me ever. But I hold back a great many things to avoid the judgment of the people and the community I care about, to avoid your judgment, to protect myself from the loss of your love and esteem. Last week, my partner David and I celebrated 21 years together. And by celebrated, we mean the day after our anniversary, we remembered that it had been our anniversary the day before. And the last couple of years have been the best of our relationship in every way, including the sexual. And if you think it's been hard for me not to post about that on Facebook, you're right. I've been having the best sex of my life and more of it, and I think that should be celebrated. Okay. I don't really understand why people can post in detail about the preparations for their colonoscopies. But I can't post that I'm feeling especially close to David because our sex last night was even more satisfying and intimate than usual. That's a hypothetical and not a literal last night because, you know, you've slept in those beds just... And I would be glad to know that others were experiencing such joy and closeness and, yes, physical pleasure. But my life is not only happy because of David, or because our children are thriving, or because my writing is going well. A year ago, I fell in love, and I have made riches of my love. It has been good for me, for my relationship with David, for my lover, for both our families, and for our communities. As love so often does, it has led to good beyond the excitement and happiness and, yes, the sex that we share. But we can't post about that on Facebook either. Because I am not fearless, I have told you a thing, but not everything. I ask you to hold the still unspoken in your hearts and allow God to begin to prepare you to hear it, whether from me or from another friend, or if you're not young, from a young person raised in a new era and offering answers as well as questions. I ask you to greet the unspoken when the time comes with humility and courage and love and perhaps silence before speech. I ask you to greet it when it comes in the company of God, who will hearten you and bear you up. A friend of mine said recently, relationships need air and light and community. We make the healthy, and wholesome expression of minority loves and sexualities that much harder with our silence and discomfort and with our condemnation. And then, when those relationships and sexualities fail to be healthy and wholesome, we take that as proof that they never could be. We all know the damage that closets do. Let us not be a party to it.